Gaijin just cannot seem to help themselves when it comes to implementing really good things that everyone's been asking for and then managing to screw it up. The two biggest examples off the top of my head that I was excited for was number one, we had the severe damage kill mechanic into the game. On paper, that should have been a great change for ARB. I was really excited about the prospect of that, and then of course, it's honestly worse than what it used to be in my opinion. I could go into a video on how I would fix that, that's a completely different topic. And then just recently, we have the battle rating quote-unquote decompression, and in some cases, this has been fantastic. Everyone's been asking for massive jump in decompression. They've only ever given us one step in BR above what we have. For example, if we had 13.0, you would expect them to go to 13.3. But no, this time they gave us 13.0 to 13.7. Much bigger jump than what we're used to, and very much needed. Has definitely helped out a lot of planes, but has hurt a lot more than it has helped. So once again, a big change for War Thunder that I was extremely excited about when it was announced, and then Gaijin managed to drop the ball when it came to the implementation, not listen to any of the feedback before pushing it to the live server, and here we are now, we're stuck with it. That being said, I'm going to take this video to talk about the number one thing that I love about this new battle rating change, and that is that my number one plane in ARB is back to being on top at number one, and that is, of course, none other than the J7E. Longtime subscribers will remember when I absolutely adored this thing in air realistic battles way back in the day when it was just a menace to society. Unfortunately, planes like the F-16 and the MiG-29 came out, and it kind of did start the end of the J7E's reign. However, with these new battle rating changes, this thing's matchmaker is absolutely comical. It sits at battle rating 11.0, and before at 11.0 you had some decent adversary around the battle rating that you were at, or if not in your up tiers, you were fighting planes like F-16s and MiG-29s, F-14s, you name it. And yeah, the J7E was going to struggle with a lot of those aircrafts, especially something like a Mirage 2000 even. Point is, there was a lot of Gen 4s that kind of started to overshadow the J7E, and it kind of just became just another one of those planes that gets up tiered and it's not as fun anymore, whereas back in the day it was top tier and it really never could face an up tier. And I'm very excited to be playing that version of the J7 again, because at battle rating 11.0, where this thing has not moved in battle rating, all of the other scary planes like the Mirage 2000, the F-14, the F-16, MiG-29, etc., the ones I listed before, they all went up in battle rating. So this J7E at 11.0 cannot fight those anymore. And honestly, there is nothing that it can fight that can hold a candle to this thing when it comes to flight performance. The only aircraft that I can think of in the battle rating bracket of the J7E right now that are actually even somewhat concerning to run into in a 1 versus 1 dogfight is the Fear C7 and maybe like an F5E or maybe a Fear Canard or C2, I don't know, something like that. Point is, sure, there are some annoying planes to deal with sometimes, but the J7E is still on top when you compare it to these aircraft. Another very large contributing factor to why the J7E is so good right now is the abundance of aircraft nerfs that have gone around to flight models of aircraft around this battle rating. Planes like the Viggen, the J7E even, the J35XS, the MiG-21s, the MiG-23, they have received some bigger than others, but they have received flight model nerfs. The J7 specifically was not bad at all, it's barely even noticeable. I will say that it is noticeable. This plane does bleed speed a little bit more than it used to in hard maneuvers, and it is technically a little bit heavier due to the weight of the fuel now than it used to be, but we're talking about negligible differences here. When it comes to 1 versus 1 matchups versus things that it can actually fight right now in its battle rating bracket, nothing changes. It's still going to stomp everything, and even more so than before, because planes like, for example, the Viggen and the MiG-23 MLD, things that were at least formidable in 1 versus 1s against the J7, have been nerfed much harder than the J7 was when it came to flight performance. So basically what I'm trying to say is that I am back on the number one J7E hype train. We're back, guys. There's no other way to put it. I've been playing a lot of J7E. I've actually been enjoying myself because this plane is like shooting puppies at an adoption center when it comes to actually being in a fight. Not that I would enjoy shooting puppies or anything, that was a terrible analogy, but you get the point. It's extremely easy to do. So to talk a little bit about the J7, as I said, it received a small nerf. You will notice that the plane bleeds a little bit more speed than it used to. This is due to the, I believe it's called Oswald efficiency in the files. That number has been tweaked a little bit. The lower the number, the worse it'll bleed speed. And to give you the J7's Oswald efficiency number, it went from a 0.75 to a 0.72. To put that into perspective, as I said, this is still noticeable when it comes to seeing how hard the plane bleeds speed. It is negligible, but it's noticeable. An aircraft like the Viggen, for example, however, went from a 0.55 to a 0.48 Oswald efficiencies number, and that is a big deal. That's significant. You're going to notice that flight model nerf, and you're going to notice it pretty badly. So with the J7E right now, you do have a nerfed flight model technically, yes, but it's still extremely strong. The best dogfighter of the entire battle rating bracket, not just 11.0, but even all the way up into the 12.0 battle rating, it is still the best dogfighter when it comes to 1v1 flight performance. And that is, of course, thanks to the genius battle rating decompression changes Gaijin has just made to the game. Aside from the amazing flight performance, you have a very healthy amount of countermeasures, and combine that with the fact that they finally give us the ability to separate chaff and flare drops, it's going to last you the entire match every single time, especially because of the fact that radar missiles aren't that common at this tier, at least not scary ones. The worst thing you're going to be fighting against is a Phantom, for example, with 4 aim 7s, and sure, that can be annoying to deal with, but the Phantom radar is not that good. It's very easy to notch, and if not, you can notch and pop 1 or 2 pops of chaff, and you'll be defeating that Sparrow every single time. Additionally, you get one of the best RWRs in the entire game at just battle rating 11.0, which is a massive plus for the J7E once again, and where I'm a little bit more disappointed than what we used to have with the J7 is the PL-5B. I absolutely adored the missile that went with this airplane back in the day when this thing was a top tier jet. The PL-5B has been nerfed since back then, just because all of the missiles have been nerfed. The PL-5B has more drag than it used to have back in the day. This is, of course, just due to the fact that Gaijin changed the way missiles fly in the air, and all of them have more drag now. And that's kind of unfortunate because that was one of the main selling points on the J7, was the PL-5 was just so nutty back then. You could hit 4 kilometer, maybe 5 kilometer shots with ease on a missile that only burns for a couple of seconds. So that missile diamond disappears off the target screen extremely fast. Meanwhile, the missile still has 3 kilometers of range in just glide time as it approaches their 6. So they basically don't even see it coming, had no time to react, and it gave you some very easy long-range snipe kills. And while it's not as good as it used to be, that's still very much the playstyle I like to employ with the J7 here. The missiles still do go roughly 3.5, maybe 4 kilometers, depending on what your target speed's looking like. And of course, target speed and your speed has everything to do with how far the missile is going to go, as well as altitude, yada yada yada. But in the average 6 o'clock rear aspect shot you're going to be getting with the PL-5 on a target that actually has some speed, I would say 3 to 3.5 kilometers is quite realistic. So while the missiles have definitely been better back in the day, they are still very good, still amongst the best of the rear aspect only missiles. I think the real only downside to the J7 right now is the fact that it does only carry 4 missiles when many of the planes at its battle rating, and especially so the Phantoms and whatnot that occupy pretty much 12.0 all by themselves, is the fact that they all have 6 to 8 missiles and the J7 only has its 4 missiles. It's really not that big of a deal though, because as I said, the missiles are still very good. If you be smart with your launches, be strategical with your launches, you can be very efficient in farming kills with them. And then when you run out, well, you'll probably catch just about everything you're fighting against and you just go shoot them with the gun, and there's nothing they can really do to stop you. Too long didn't read. I don't want to make this video go on for longer than it has to. We're already damn near at 10 minutes here. This is your call to action to revisit the J7E if you already have it, or go grind it if you don't have it. Granted, Gaijin could just wake up one day and decide they want to change battle ratings again, as they did with the recent changes, which unfortunately they decided they wanted to do right after having their premium sale. Very convenient for all of you and extremely convenient for me after I just made all of those videos covering different premium aircraft and what I recommend, what I don't recommend. Basically, all of that's meaningless now, thank you Gaijin, and I have to remake them. And for those of you who purchased something based on my recommendations, I apologize, there's really nothing I can do. I could not have known that they were going to do this back when I made those videos. And so it's really just an unfortunate situation. and I do feel very bad for you guys if you got screwed over by these changes, like for example, the J35XS going up in battle rating, only having as many countermeasures as it does, and getting flight model nerfs. Nonetheless, again, this video is about the positive of the change, and that is that the J7 is terrorizing 11.0 to 12.0 lobbies right now. So give it a try. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you remember the glory days of J70 on this channel in the comments down below, and I'll see you later.